So my presentation is on the impact of a primarily female practice on lessening gender discrepancies in cataract surgery. To begin, let me zoom in. Cataracts are a clouding of the lens in the eye. It is caused by a condensing of the proteins of the lens. The lens of your eye works as almost like a contact lens. It bends in order to put whatever it is you're looking at into focus. So of course, as it becomes more and more clouded with time, if untreated, it can eventually cause blindness. And you can see that in this image. That's a really extreme cataract. Cataracts cause about 51% of global blindness, so they are the leading cause of global blindness, and of these cases, due to a lack of access to care, 90% of these cataract cases of cataract blindness is located in the developing world. So you can just see that represented visually here on this chart. And additionally, as cataracts are left untreated, there is a significant decrease in household productivity and income, as well as happiness. This is just because oftentimes when one person is taken out of work due to going blind, another family member also has to leave work to stay home and take care of them. And getting into gender discrepancies, women are about 56% of the world's 36 million blind and 55% of the world's 216.6 million with visual impairment. So there is a slight discrepancy in that women have more cataracts, and this is primarily because women are just treated less often than are men. This has been found time and time again by a lot of different studies, which have found that vision loss can increase gender inequalities as women who need surgery are prioritized a lot less than men who need surgery. Men's male surgical coverage rate is a lot higher than that for females. And this is often just a result of men going out for work, and also women, especially in the developing world, tend to fulfill more domestic roles, and so they are just less valued in society and not provided with as much surgery. One study in sub-Saharan Africa found that, again, surgical coverage is a lot higher for males than it is for females, despite females making up a much higher amount of those with cataracts. So you can see here on the left, women make up about 63% of those with cataracts, but have a lot less actual coverage. And this was also found in Tanzania, the Kilimanjaro region, which was the exact region that I studied, and found that often women's conditions and ailments just aren't viewed as important as those of men are. So moving on to my study, the issue, of course, is that globally women are receiving a lot less cataract care than are men, despite usually getting them at the same rate. And so I wanted to determine whether a primarily female practice, which includes outreach, is effective in lessening gender discrepancies in developing nations, specifically the Kilimanjaro region of Tanzania. And my hypothesis was that having a primarily female practice with effective outreach will lessen the prevalence of gender discrepancies in cataract surgery in Tanzania. So the location of my research was the Kilimanjaro region of Tanzania. Data was gathered for patients at Mwenzi Hospital. This is a location where you have a high prevalence of cataracts, and also where my mentor often works and goes, and she trains a lot of local ophthalmologists there. And she actually brought me with her my sophomore year, and I was able to meet the director of the hospital. He actually came to dinner with my family a few months ago, and I was able to, talk with some ophthalmologists and kind of learn about the region. So in the study, my independent variable was gender, and the dependent variables were, at the time of surgery, visual acuity, age, and time spent with cataracts for each patient. And so to begin, I created a survey, a different survey for patients, patient caretakers, and surgeons, to kind of ask them questions about the accessibility of surgery and whether they felt they had been supported in getting surgery. So a lot of patients were asked how long did they have cataracts, whether they felt their community supported them, what were some barriers in gaining surgery. Some of the surgeons were asked a lot about how patients find surgery, whether they feel they see more men than women, or they don't feel that there's a discrepancy, and also questions about how severe cataracts usually are. And most of the caretakers, so those are the people that accompanied the patients to the hospital, were asked questions about their community's general attitude towards surgery and whether the patient was encouraged to get surgery or had to fight for it. Moving on, so this survey was optional. It was given to patients after they had surgery, so they didn't feel pressured to participate. As a result, there were only about 31 surveys, so the data from this, all of the outliers had a really big impact on it. Whereas the data collection, I took data from 173 total patients. These were the sheet forms that were filled out as patients were given surgery. Doctors recorded their visual acuity prior to surgery in each eye, their gender, as well as their age. So in order to standardize all of the visual acuity data that was taken, I created a scale from 0 to 6 on which I put all of the different recordings that the doctors had for their visual acuity, being no sight at 0, light perception, hand motion, and ranging all the way to actual numbered recordings for their eyesight, which is on the 20/20 scale. And finally, I performed z-tests to compare all of these different variables that I gathered, both from the survey as well as from the forms from doctors, and I compared them to gender in order to determine their significance. So the results were actually quite surprising. For the percentage of cataract surgeries performed on females compared to males, I found that women did make up a minority of the patients, but it wasn't at all significant. You can see here women were 47% of patients, whereas men were 53% of patients. Then for visual acuity prior to surgery, again, you can see females had 2.95 while men had 3.11. So you can see here women were closer to 0, which was blindness, but it's, again, not at all significant. Next, for average age prior to surgery, women were older than were men, which means, they were older than men, but again, this was not a significant value at all. However, the one thing that did come out significant was that men, on average, spent a lot more time with their cataracts than did women, which was the opposite of what we expected, because usually women have to, according to all of the studies I read, have to wait a lot longer before getting surgery than do men. But this is also the only data piece that I got from the survey, which is 31 people. So any outliers did have a pretty big impact on it. And you can see with the men, there was a huge standard deviation. So to conclude, it seems that outreach efforts, which were involved in finding patients for this, they made sure to seek out both male and female patients. And in addition, the surgical team had a lot of women, and those that weren't, all of them were very educated on gender discrepancies and were eager to help lessen these discrepancies. And it appears that this was actually pretty effective at least in this case, at lessening gender inequalities in terms of access to cataract surgery. So moving forward, though, I think it is really interesting that the one thing that was significant was time spent with cataracts, which is different from all of the studies that I had read prior. So I think it would be really interesting to do a similar study on women and men patients from in other regions globally, or to do it again at Moenzi Hospital in the Kilimanjaro region, and to see whether to do it again with more people and see whether the data is consistent, and of course to see whether outreach is truly a significant factor in lessening these gender discrepancies. So to conclude, globally there are really significant gender discrepancies in access to cataract surgery, but it would appear at least that increased awareness of gender inequalities and effort to find female patients as well as male patients in outreach, when outreach is used in finding patients, this can actually have a really significant effect in lessening gender discrepancies and providing women with the access to cataract treatment that they need. Thank you.